difficult time with the Great Depression affecting people all over the world, but it was still an interesting decade. And it is known as the Not-So-Great Depression. The 30s was an extremely fascinating decade, and we will now show you why we believe it is the best with its music, recreation, food, and much more.
The 1930s was an era where skin wasn't shown much, patterns and floral designs galore, and even gowns would be glamorous. With fashion icons like Greta Garbo, women went for a sophisticated, tall and slender look, broad shoulders, and a small butt. Suede gloves were worn with matching bags and shoes, which were red and gray fox fur. Artificial silks and zippers were even made because the unemployment rate was 24% and people couldn't afford the real thing. Men bought outfit packages which came with a suit, hat, 3 pairs of socks, 2 dress shirts, a tie, and a pair of shoes, and all cost $25. Boys wear short shorts with tall socks and a collared shirt. Boys had many costumes ranging from $1.09 to $3.49. Hair was a windbone look with a medium to long hair for women, while men wore their hair short, natural, and parted on the side. Songs were known to be so much more in meaning and were always more popular than the artists. Songs like Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz or like 42nd Street. Big artists like Glenn Miller in the jazz industry. Music being so upbeat and relaxing, people were always in love and always dancing to the music. The Great Depression took an astonishing toll on sports, with it being low in cost and also becoming commercialized. This also led to postponing the Winter Olympics at the time. Still, many championships happened. The New York Yankees and the Green Bay Packers were very popular and won the championship 3 to 4 times. In 1936, Jesse Owens is one of the Olympics medalists. At this time, many records were getting smashed. The entertainment was mostly radio shows, but people still would watch cheap movies. In this time period was called the Golden Age of Radio. 40% of the population had a radio. The 30s was the beginning of the classics Hollywood era. Examples of Oscar-winning actresses and actors like Vivien Leigh in Gone with the Wind and Lois Rayner in The Good Earth. Many hand-me-downs were usually given to children as toys because of low money. Toys had much imagination. New board games like Monopoly, Scrabble, and Sorry were made. Girls played with their dolls in their houses, while boys had Buck Roger ray guns. They also had tricycles, scooters, and sleds. Movies were in black and white and showing The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, and King Kong. In 1930, Walt Disney made their first princess movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Books were limited with color because of stock crash, and illustrators did line drawings. Magazines became popular because of how cheap they were. Published books were like the Little Golden Books and Pokey Little Popey. Warner Bros. Even produced Looney Tunes and the Merry Melody series in this have little to eat. New recipes began to be made, like the depression cake or mock apple pie. Soup kitchens opened up to keep those people from starving sometimes. People would wait in line for hours to get watery soup and bread. Farmers had their own food to grow and ate vegetables, eggs, and milk. Sometimes meat was eaten from sheep, cattle, or pigs. Ruth Wakefield even made the first chocolate chip cookies and started selling them. The beginnings of food like Twinkies and Spam began. And even tacos and tri-tip weren't around until 1931. Or that chicken and waffles was created in 1938. The first supermarket in the U.S. opened on August 4, 1930, and Campbell's soup was introduced, and the phrase, good, recipes like banana bread and margaritas were introduced as well. Cobb salad was created till 1937.
Women were never appointed government positions until the New Deal years. Eleanor Roosevelt was one of the most remarkable women in the 30s. She began a newspaper column called My Day, and she spoke about things like race and women. Eleanor was a huge political figure and the First Lady. She helped the press conference focus on how the New Deal programs affected women and minorities. But as influential as she was not the only one. In 1930, Jessie Daniel Ames organized the Association of Southern Women for the Prevention of Lynching. In 1932, Amelia Earhart went on her first solo Atlantic flight, which was amazing. Only one man had ever done that, and a second person doing that is remarkable, let alone the fact that it was a woman. In 1933, Frances Perkins became the first female cabinet member. In 1935, along with My Day, Mary McLeod Bethune founded the National Council of Negro Women. She was an influential lady and spoke for all African Americans. In 1939, she gave the speech, "What Does American Democracy Mean to Me?" Politics were rough in the 30s due to the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover was president when the stock market first crashed, and many people blamed him for it. In 1930, he passed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, which raised tariffs on over 20,000 goods. In 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected president. People hoped he could help with the Great Depression. That same year, he promised a New Deal. This was a series of laws, programs, and government agencies to help with the country to deal with the Great Depression. Many of those laws are still around today, like the Social Security Act. This created over 100 new government offices and 40 agencies. The Great Depression increased the role of government in people's everyday lives. Due to world poverty, political extremisms gained followers, like Nazism, which caused Hitler to rise and start World War II. The start of the end began when Germany attacked Poland and started World War II. During the 30s, there was a good amount of inventions and new technology introduced. In 1939, the single-rotor helicopter was invented. In 1935, color film photography was introduced. Tea bags were sold commercially, the first photocopier was invented, the first ballpoint pen was sold in 1938, electric razor in 1931, and the Polaroid camera in 1932. FM radio was invented by Edwin Armstrong, the Richter scale in 1935 by Charles F. Richter, and radio waves from cosmic sources in 1932 by Carl Jansley. Food inventions are also pretty cool, with things like Spam in the blender being invented, which brought smoothies with it. The 30s was a time of great economic crisis. The economy was terrible because the stock market crashed in the late 20s, causing the Great Depression. The Great Depression lasted until the start of World War II and left a lasting legacy. More than 24.5% of the population was unemployed. $100 back then would be $1,204.42 today. The Great Depression started in the U.S. but quickly spread to the rest of the world. Many people were out of work, hungry, and homeless. By 1931, unemployment reached 12 million. Banks all around failed and many people lost their life savings. Poverty struck over 40 million Americans. With the Great Depression getting more serious, suicide rates skyrocketed. People didn't know what to do anymore and felt hopeless. There was around 20,000 suicides because of the Great Depression.
That's all, folks.